It began with static, a sharp, electric pulse that shattered the silence of the night. Screens across the world flickered, glitching in unison. A high-pitched tone split the air, followed by a single chilling voice that cut through everything. "They're already here." Time froze. Heartbeats skipped. Then came the chaos. Phones screamed, satellites blinked out, and a deep, guttural hum rolled across the skies. The alien transmission flooded every channel, a garbled, inhuman cacophony, incomprehensible yet deliberate. Across living rooms, war rooms, and bedrooms, people stared in frozen horror. The message was clear, even if the words weren't. They hadn't just contacted us. They had arrived. Amid the panic, one person didn't flinch. Eli Mercer, 38, analyst and veteran, stood silent, feeling the weight of something ancient stir within him. A phrase echoed in his head, not in fear, but in familiarity. "We've been waiting for you." He didn't know how he knew it. But the words weren't new. They were a memory. The next morning silence reigned, but it wasn't peace. It was the breath before the scream. Global networks were offline, military convoys rolled through silent streets, and the sky was the wrong shade of gray. Eli stood at his kitchen sink, gripping the counter with white-knuckled hands as distant tremors rolled beneath the floor. On the screen of his old laptop, now strangely operational, one message blinked in blood-red font. "He knows you." No sender. No metadata. No explanation. Just those 3 words. Outside, neighbors peeked through curtains, terrified. The air was thick, electric, like the calm before a storm. And still, no one talked about the transmission. News played old clips, the government feigned normalcy. But everyone knew. Something fundamental had shifted. Eli looked to the sky, and it looked back. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. Dreams dragged him into places too vivid to be imagination. Long corridors bathed in blue light, voices whispering in forgotten languages, and a planet that wasn't Earth. He awoke, gasping, drenched in sweat, to find a mark burned into his forearm. A spiral of intersecting lines, not drawn but embedded beneath the skin like a scar. His phone buzzed, though it had no signal. A voice message played on its own. A woman's voice, distorted, pleading, "You must remember who you are before they do." The voice was familiar. It was his mother. But she'd been dead for over 10 years. Shaken, Eli stared at the mark, his past suddenly crashing back with terrifying clarity. Eli tore through his childhood keepsake box, searching for anything, any clue. He found it. A photo, old and faded, of his mother standing beside a man in a military uniform, both facing a massive satellite dish. Scribbled on the back in his mother's handwriting, "When they come, he'll feel it first." As thunder rolled outside, Eli gripped the photo, his pulse racing. Memories surfaced, camping trips where lights danced above the trees, whispered bedtime stories about stars that watch back, and his mother always checking the sky as if waiting. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. She'd known. She'd always known. By the end of that week, the world had fractured into 2 states, panic and denial. Online forums boiled with wild theories. Project Signalback, the Silent Protocol, the Mercer lineage. Somehow, Eli's name had surfaced. Strangers whispered it, files leaked with his face circled in red. But it was the videos that hit hardest, footage of Eli in his 20s, stationed at a secret base in Alaska, standing in front of the same sigil now etched into his skin. He didn't remember. But someone had made sure the world did. The conspiracy wasn't just out of control, it had turned into prophecy. Eli wasn't running anymore. He needed answers. The streets were too quiet. Not abandoned, just subdued, like the world had collectively forgotten how to breathe. Eli moved through his neighborhood in a hooded jacket, eyes watching everything. He knew someone was following him. The message from the dead woman, his mother, still echoed in his ears. Every corner he turned felt rigged with invisible wires, every face looked too calm. When he ducked into an alley to catch his breath, he He found a flyer glued to a brick wall, bright red, stamped with an unmistakable symbol. The spiral mark burned into his arm. The words beneath it read, "He's awake." Panic bloomed in his chest, not for himself, but for what that meant. Somewhere, someone knew his role. He wasn't a survivor. He was a trigger. Behind him, a van crept slowly down the road, unmarked, but deliberate. He didn't wait. Eli ran, because if they knew, others would come. And they wouldn't be asking questions. They found him before dawn. 2 agents in tailored suits, no names, no badges, just the hollow calm of men who'd done this before. They said they were with National Intelligence, though Eli didn't believe it for a second. "You've been activated," one of them said, sliding a tablet across the table in the back of a sterile transport van. On the screen, satellite photos of Alaska, time-stamped from years ago, him, the base, and something glowing in the snow. "You don't remember, but it remembers you," the agent continued. Before Eli could respond, the van shook violently. Alarms blared. Then, impact. Something had hit them from above. The roof crumpled like foil. Gunfire erupted. The agents were dead before they hit the ground. Eli crawled through shattered glass into the early morning light, ears ringing, heart racing. The sky above shimmered unnaturally. This wasn't an accident. They were sending a message. Eli staggered into the shadows of the train yard, wounded and dazed. He didn't expect help, but it came anyway. A woman in a long coat emerged from the darkness, her face familiar in a way he couldn't explain. "Get up," she snapped, pulling him to his feet. "They'll be scanning for your neural signature." Her name was Iris Vane, mid-30s, former cyberops turned rogue investigator. She'd been tracking alien signals since before the first transmission. "You're not infected yet. That's good." Eli didn't have time to ask questions. Iris moved like someone used to running from impossible things. She took him to her safe house, an abandoned subway platform lit with old tech and flickering green screens. There, she showed him what no one else would, a decoded piece of the transmission. A human voice, buried under alien noise, whispering coordinates. And his name. The first encounter came without warning. The air thinned. Lights dimmed. Eli felt it before he saw it. A tremble deep in his bones, like a forgotten rhythm returning. Iris spun around, weapon drawn. At the far end of the tunnel, something shimmered into existence, not a creature, but a presence, fluid, tall, with shifting limbs and no face. It didn't move. It hovered. Observed. "It's a scout," Iris whispered. "We can't let it lock eyes with you." But it was already too late. Eli met its gaze, or what passed for one, and time fractured. Visions poured into his mind, worlds burning, galaxies bending, and a voice that wasn't a voice whispering one phrase, "You were made for us." The entity vanished. Eli collapsed, bleeding from the nose, heart hammering. Iris knelt beside him. "Now they know exactly where you are," she said grimly. "You've been mocked." Iris worked fast. She activated an old neural scrambler, frying the last known location ping. "We bought a few hours," she muttered. Eli sat against the wall, staring at nothing. He wasn't just hunted, he was connected. The vision had shown him things he shouldn't understand, but somehow did. Schematics. Languages. Locations burned into his memory. "They put something in me," he said quietly. "Or pulled something out." Iris handed him a black box. Inside, a glowing chip, still warm. "This was extracted from your old station, whatever they left behind. This is the key." Eli hesitated, then closed the box. A strange resolve hardened in his chest. He didn't ask to be part of this war. But it had come for him. And now it was personal. "I want to know everything," he said. Iris nodded. "Then we go off-grid, because from here on out you're not just a man, they think you're a weapon." They traveled underground, following an encrypted trail embedded in the alien chip. It led to Site K, a defunct research base buried beneath the Colorado Rockies. The elevator they rode down creaked and groaned as it descended into freezing darkness. When the doors opened, what greeted them wasn't just a facility, it was a graveyard. Lab equipment sat frozen in time, dust layered over broken screens, glass cracked and yellowed. But the horror came in the deeper levels. Rows of containment pods, each holding a human body suspended in eerie glowing liquid. Eli stared, breath fogging in the cold. "These aren't clones," Iris said, her voice hollow. "They're hybrids, human shells grown with alien coding." Files confirmed it. The program was called Genesis Shift, and Eli's name appeared in multiple logs. He hadn't joined the project. He'd been part of it since before he was born. In a locked vault at the center of Site K, they uncovered something even more disturbing, a briefing room with walls plastered in photographs. Satellite images, brain scans, heat maps, all focused on Eli. It wasn't surveillance. It was documentation. "You've been monitored your entire life?" Iris whispered, tracing a line from Ellie's childhood home to his military post and beyond. In the center of the room sat an old file box, marked Mercer Primary. Inside, his mother's medical records, labeled Subject Host, Phase 0. Shock turned to nausea. She hadn't just known about the project. She had been the first test subject. "They built you through her," Iris said softly, "and kept her alive long enough to guide you." Rage burned in Eli's chest. This wasn't fate. It was engineering. And everyone he trusted had played a part. The question now wasn't who did this. It was why. They fled Site K just before the drones arrived. Iris wiped their digital trace, but not before receiving a cryptic message. "He remembers." That night, they found shelter in an abandoned motel outside Boulder. Iris took the first watch, her eyes never leaving the empty highway. Eli sat inside, lost in thought, until the knock came. A familiar rhythm. 3 short, 2 long. It was a code only one man knew, Julian Ward, his former squad leader and closest friend. Eli opened the door to find Julian standing there, older but unchanged, except for the metallic glint in his eyes. "We need to talk," Julian said. But the warmth in his voice was gone. He stepped inside, sat calmly, and said the one thing Eli feared most. "You're not supposed to remember." Then before Eli could speak, Julian's skin shimmered, and something underneath blinked. The truth hit like a bullet. Julian had been one of them for years, implanted, altered, instructed to keep Eli close and compliant. "You were never supposed to activate," he said. "The others were meant to fail." Iris burst into the room, weapon drawn. "Step away from him." But Julian didn't flinch. He turned slowly, the shimmer in his skin rippling like water. "It's not what you think," he said. "I'm not your enemy, but they're watching. Always watching." Then his face shifted, just enough to reveal the alien structure beneath, metallic sinew, hollow sockets and circuitry fused with flesh. "We didn't betray you, Eli," Julian said. "You were always part of this." He raised his hands in surrender, but his eyes burned with guilt. "I just wanted you to have a choice." Then he vanished in a blink of light. Eli dropped to his knees. Betrayal had a name, and it wore a friend's face. After Julian vanished, silence fell like a curtain. Iris locked the door, reinforced the windows, and destroyed any electronics. "We're out of time," she said. "They won't wait anymore." But Eli had already slipped into his thoughts. In his mind, fragments of language, non-human, raw, electric, began to translate themselves. He saw blueprints in his head, remembered codes he never studied. Something inside him was waking up. He wasn't just connected to the aliens. He was part of their design. But what terrified him more was the growing realization that he could feel their presence. Not just nearby, but inside him. Like they were listening. Iris noticed his silence. "What do you feel?" she asked. Eli looked at her, eyes unfocused. "I don't think I'm supposed to run," he said. I think I'm supposed to become what they made me. Then from outside, a distant, unnatural hum began to rise. The next night, Eli and Iris descended into a cold storage facility beneath an abandoned airfield, coordinates hidden in the alien blueprint Eli had seen in his mind. There, locked in a cryo chamber that predated known military infrastructure, they found it. An alien scout, alive, restrained, and breathing without air. Its form was semi-liquid, humanoid in shape, but constantly shifting in texture and hue. Iris stared in stunned silence. "It's not just a soldier," she whispered. "It's an envoy." As they approached, the being's shape stilled, and its eyes, glowing orbs of swirling light, locked onto Eli. Then it spoke without sound. A mental echo filled their skulls. "He is not of Earth." The alien wasn't hostile. It was frightened. "Why me?" Eli thought. The alien replied, "Because your line chose this path. You are convergence." The message was clear. The blood in his veins wasn't entirely human, and hadn't been for generations. The truth shattered everything. After extracting data from the alien's neural field, Iris revealed a buried file, one that had been locked away in government black sites for over 50 years. It was genetic analysis of Eli's family tree. Each generation bore markers of deliberate genetic tampering. Eli's great-grandfather, a Cold War intelligence officer, had unknowingly carried the first synthetic strand. Over time, the modifications passed down, refined with precision. "Your mother wasn't just a host," Iris said grimly. "She was part of a long-running program. You are the first completed model." Eli stared at the screen, stunned. Every decision, every ache in his bones, every strange dream, it all made sense now. He wasn't born into this war. He was engineered for it. Iris stepped back. "You're not a soldier," she whispered. "You're the prototype." And Eli realized he didn't just belong to Earth. He belonged to something bigger and darker. As Eli processed the horror of his lineage, fragments of memory began stitching together, not just from his own life, but ancestral memories that had no place in his mind. In one vision, he stood on a different world, its twin suns casting golden light over silver towers. In another, he witnessed the forging of a pact between a human and something vast and starless. Iris helped stabilize him through neuromapping, guiding him through the disorienting flood. Then he saw her, his mother, younger, standing at a console surrounded by military officials, her voice trembling. "He must never know." Iris froze the image. "That was Project Thaumatus," she said. "The program that created you and killed her." Eli fell silent. She hadn't just died. She'd sacrificed herself, not for Earth, but to keep him from being used. He wasn't just the result. He was the reason. After hours of silence, Eli and Iris drove to an off-grid cabin in the northern mountains. There, deep in a locked chest beneath the floorboards, Eli found the final clue his mother had hidden, an old journal. Its pages were brittle, ink faded, but every word burned like fire. She'd known everything, from the first symptoms of her own mutation to the knowledge of the alien bloodline, to the moment she was ordered to let the program take her child. But the final entry stopped Eli's breath cold. "He will either save us or become the gateway." Iris read it twice, then lowered the book slowly. "They didn't make you to protect us," she said. "They made you to open something." Outside, the wind picked up. Eli stood in the doorway, watching the sky. It wasn't metaphor. It was literal. The gate was real, and whatever waited beyond it was no longer dormant. The gate was hidden in plain sight. A remote desert valley, where electromagnetic fields twisted like serpents and compasses spun wildly. Eli and Iris arrived at dusk, guided by coordinates buried deep within the alien chip. There, carved into the earth itself, was a vast spiral, hundreds of meters wide, only visible under infrared scans. As they stepped into the center, the ground trembled. The sky cracked with unnatural light. "It's not a machine," Eli said. "It's alive." The spiral pulsed in response, and the air thickened with pressure. Iris reached for her gun. "We're not alone." From the ridges silhouettes emerged, cloaked, humanoid, but wrong. Then a voice filled the air, low and thunderous. "He has come." The threshold opens. The spiral began to descend, revealing an impossible chamber beneath. Eli didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, and the earth swallowed him whole. Beneath the spiral, Eli found a chamber unlike anything on Earth, miles wide, alive with pulsing veins of light etched into obsidian walls. The architecture was not built. It had grown. Iris dropped in behind him, her voice shaking. "This place, it's ancient." At the center stood a pedestal, and atop it, something not quite machine, not quite organic. The artifact responded to Eli's presence, unfolding with smooth, alien motion. Iris raised her weapon. Careful. But the moment Eli touched it, a surge of power ripped through the chamber. Images flooded his mind. Stars, wars, beings beyond form, and Earth at the center of it all. The device wasn't a weapon. It was a key. And Eli was the lock. Around them, ancient machinery came to life, the chamber breathing again after eons of sleep. Iris stared in horror. This isn't just an alien vault, it's a launch site. And something was already preparing to rise. Or they could escape alarms, if they could be called that, screamed through the chamber, deep, subsonic pulses that vibrated bone. Hidden doors opened all around them. Troopers in black exosuits stormed in, moving with military precision. Human, but not. "They're hybrids," Iris hissed. Government groaned. Eli acted instinctively, raising the artifact like a shield. Light exploded outward, sending 3 soldiers flying. He didn't know how he'd done it, only that the artifact had listened. Iris opened fire, laying cover. They ran through collapsing tunnels, dodging plasma fire and seismic tremors. The earth above groaned. This wasn't just an incursion. It was a trigger event. "They wanted you to activate this," Iris said between breaths. "Now they'll try to control it." Eli looked back at the sealed vault. "Then we take it from them first." This wasn't survival anymore. It was war. And Earth was the battleground. They made it to the surface just before sunrise. But what greeted them wasn't dawn, it was invasion. Massive triangular ships, silent and matte black, hovered over major cities. The news feeds Iris patched into were chaos. Fires in Chicago, EMPs in Tokyo, coordinated power grid failures in Europe. But it wasn't alien tech that was causing the collapse. It was human-made systems responding to internal commands. "They've activated Protocol Omega," Iris said, scanning data. "It's not about the aliens anymore. It's about containment." Drones circled overhead, scanning for signatures. The military wasn't fighting the enemy. They were hunting them. Eli gripped the artifact, now fully awakened and pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "We're done running," he said. "Where's the nearest control node?" Iris replied without hesitation. "New Denver, heavily fortified." Eli nodded. "Then that's where we end this. We take their tech or we die trying." They launched a raid on New Denver at midnight. With stolen clearance codes and hacked aerial drones, they infiltrated the outer wall and plunged into the heart of the military fortress. Inside, the corridors buzzed with synthetic life, automated defenses, surveillance drones, and soldiers whose movements were too precise to be entirely human. Eli wielded the artifact like instinct, channeling energy into devastating pulses that knocked out power grids and scrambled AI systems. Every step forward was met with resistance, and every ally they'd contacted on the dark net was either dead or missing. Iris took a round to the shoulder but kept moving. "You have to get to the core," she gasped. "It's all wired through you." As they reached the mainframe chamber, Eli faced the truth. This wasn't a battle for survival anymore. It was a hostile reclamation. And humanity was just collateral damage in a much bigger equation. Inside the core chamber, an enormous cylindrical vault humming with power, Eli found the central interface. A throne-like structure built for a non-human form pulsed with a waiting command. "It's not just data," he whispered. "It's a command relay. Every global defense satellite, every weapon, every AI agent, slaved to this node." The artifact fit into the interface like a key. As it locked in place, his mind flooded with control pathways, command sequences, choices. Iris leaned on the wall, pale from blood loss. "You can use it. End this." But Eli hesitated. The system offered two paths: shut it down and risk alien retaliation, or assume full control, effectively becoming a living command center. "What if I become what they made me to be?" he asked. Iris met his gaze. "Then, at least you'll do it by choice." Eli reached out, not trembling. Not anymore. This wasn't about what they did to him. It was about what he would do next. The world watched. Screens hijacked, satellites overridden. Every device played the same stream. Eli stood before the core interface, Lev. His face filled the world's vision. Iris had tapped into the global feed just before collapsing from her wound. "Let them see the truth," she said, barely conscious. Eli's voice rang out, steady and unflinching. "This world has been manipulated by forces above us and by the ones we trusted to lead. Today, that ends." As he spoke, the artifact glowed, flooding the command center with blinding light. Governments scrambled to shut it down, but nothing responded. Eli wasn't a hacker. He was the override. With one command, he exposed every secret: black projects, alien treaties, human experiments broadcasted to the globe. Panic erupted. But in that chaos, Eli didn't flinch. "We are not prey," he declared. "We are not your tools. We are the storm you never saw coming." And Earth awoke. Backlash was immediate. Across the globe, cities erupted into riots and resistance. Some rallied behind Eli. Others tried to take him down. But worse was yet to come. From deep within Earth's orbit, an alien fleet emerged, not a scouting party, but a full armada. Iris, groggy but lucid, pointed to the live feed. "They were waiting for you to signal." The core had awakened, not only the truth, but the threat. The gate Eli opened had been two-way. Humanity's exposure was the cost. "This is retaliation," Iris muttered. "Or arrival." Eli felt it in his bones. These ships weren't here to destroy. They were here to judge. One vessel descended alone, black and massive, landing in the Utah salt flats with impossible grace. "They're calling you," Iris said, her voice hollow. Eli nodded. He didn't need words. He could feel the invitation. The next move was his. And it would change everything. Eli walked alone across the salt, every step echoing in silence. No wind. No sound. Just him and the ship. As he approached, a portal irised open, not mechanical, but organic in movement, almost like the ship breathed. Inside was a blinding white void. He stepped in, and the world shifted. Gravity folded. Time stalled. Then he stood in a chamber of stars, an impossible space like standing inside a galaxy. Before him, three figures emerged, tall, robed, faceless. They spoke not in sound, but in thought. "You are the result of balance and the disruption." Eli replied, "Why me?" They answered in unison, "Because you are both consequence and catalyst. Earth's path ends or begins here." Then they offered a vision, two futures. One of subjugation, one of terrifying unity. "You must choose," they said, "and your kind will follow." Eli's heart thundered. The fate of his species rested in a choice he barely understood. Eli didn't speak. He closed his eyes and felt the weight of 1,000 memories. His mother's voice, Iris' pain, the faces of people he'd never met but somehow remembered. The alien consciousness brushed against his own, searching, probing, but not controlling. Then he did something unexpected. He pushed back. "No," he said. "You don't get to choose for us." The chamber trembled. The entities reeled. Eli reached into the link and twisted it, using the artifact not to accept command, but to rewrite it. "This isn't your gateway anymore," he growled. "It's ours." Shock pulsed through the connection. The aliens attempted to sever the link, but he'd already encoded himself into the network. "You built me to open the door," Eli said. "But I'm sealing it, from our side." And with one final surge, he fractured the connection. The chamber cracked apart, and Eli fell screaming back toward Earth. He awoke on the desert floor, gasping for air. The ship was gone, vanished like it had never existed. The sky above was silent. No fleet. No signal. Just wind. Iris ran to him, still bleeding, and dropped to her knees beside him. "You did it," she whispered. "You sent them back." Eli didn't speak. His hands glowed faintly, residual energy fading by the second. Something inside him was broken. Or complete. Across the world, systems rebooted. The satellites realigned. Communications returned. The feed was gone. The weapon was gone. The gate was sealed. But Earth was not the same. In that moment, something ancient had shifted. Humanity had not won, but it had not surrendered either. As the sun rose over the salt flats, Eli sat in silence, knowing full well that this wasn't the end. The aliens would return. But next time, Earth would be ready. And so would he. The world emerged into silence, not peace, but the stunned quiet of a species jolted awake. In cities and towns, people stepped out of homes like survivors of a collective storm, unsure of what had passed, but knowing instinctively that the world had changed. Governments scrambled to spin the event, but too much truth had already spilled. The footage had been seen. The faces remembered. And somewhere in every corner of Earth, people whispered the same name: Eli Mercer. He became myth in a matter of days. Vanished from public view, declared dead by officials who couldn't afford the questions. But behind the headlines, whispers spread through military ranks and underground networks. Eli was alive, in hiding and watching. Not a hero, not a god. Just a man who said no, and made the universe listen. And from that silence, something new began to grow. Resistance, not just to aliens, but to every lie that came before them. In a remote location buried deep within the Scottish Highlands, a hidden bunker hummed to life. Inside, Iris, recovered, arm still bandaged, worked alone among glowing servers and cables spread like veins. She had continued Eli's mission, building what they once joked about, a firewall for Earth. And the Earth-wide neural defense system, BIDU, a countermeasure, not just against alien invasion but against the systems built by humanity to betray itself. Though she hadn't seen Eli since the flats, she kept receiving data packets, encrypted signals that only he could have sent. Coordinates. Warnings. Visions. PT. She didn't need to ask if he was alive. The code told her he was. And in the silence of that bunker, with stars gleaming beyond the reinforced dome above, Iris whispered the words she once feared. "They'll come again." But this time, she didn't sound afraid. She sounded ready. Far from the eyes of satellites and soldiers, Eli walked a coastal trail alone, wind snapping at his coat, sea crashing against jagged rocks below. His posture had changed. Calmer, heavier, not from burden, but understanding. He no longer needed to run. He was part of something larger now, embedded in the systems he once feared. His hands no longer glowed, but the energy remained. Muted. Controlled. He paused at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the endless ocean. A child and her father passed him on the trail. The girl stared at him like she recognized something ancient in his eyes. He nodded once, then turned back to the path. Behind him, carved into the rock face by unseen hands, was a spiral, faint, weathered, and impossibly old. A reminder The door might be closed, but the key still walks among them. Somewhere in the dark between stars, something stirred. A ship drifted, silent, titanic, covered in scars from a war long forgotten. Inside, preserved in stasis, were more of them. Not scouts, not diplomats, architects. The ship systems blinked online as a pulse from Earth reached its receivers. A signal, a defiance. Subject Alpha diverged. The ship's AI declared. The alien consciousness stirred, but did not panic. Earth had sealed the gate, but only their gate. There were others. The galactic web wasn't broken, just rerouted. Initiate observation phase 2, the AI intoned. Around the ship, others began to light up. Ancient, massive, and waiting. Because while Earth had screamed its rage into the stars had heard. And they remembered. What began as conquest had become curiosity. And curiosity always came back. Eli walked into the horizon, the sky overcast, the wind rising. His coat flapped, boots crunching against gravel, but no music played, no voice narrated. Only silence. Behind him, the world stirred, new wars, new awakenings, and a truth too big to bury again. As he reached the ridgeline, he paused, looked back, then kept walking. His voice, only now, returned in echo. The truth has a price. The camera pulled back, farther and farther, revealing not just Eli, but dozens of others emerging across the world. Men, dying. Women, children, died. Each with the mark. The alien presence had never been singular. And Earth's story wasn't over. In the final shot, deep underground, a pulse blinked once from a hidden terminal. A single word appeared, next. The screen cut to black. The story ended. Or maybe, it had just begun.